Hello and welcome to Epiphytic Cacti. Today we're going to talk a little bit about cuttings. The first thing that you should do when you get cuttings is let them callus over for a week or two. By callus over, which simply means let the end dry, so that when you pot it, it's much less likely to rot. You should definitely be keeping a record, and what you should keep a record of is the name of the hybrid, how many cuttings you received of the hybrid, the date you received the cuttings, and who you received the cuttings from. One of the reasons why this is extremely important, and if you lose that hybrid, you would want to know where you obtained it from. It definitely helps if you lose a tag as well. Believe it or not, I have had birds fly off with my cuttings and fly off with my tags. So it definitely helps to have some kind of very clear documented record. A couple of things that you should pick up while your cuttings are callusing: the Sharpies to write on the cuttings, these to actually write on these types of labels. A fair warning about Sharpies, and particularly these little plastic labels, it will wear off within about a year for me. What a lot of people do and write on them with just number 2 pencil, because that doesn't really wear off. There are several types of insecticides or even just plain alcohol that you might be spraying on these types of plants to remove insects or to treat fungus or bacteria, and that can literally wipe the marker away. Another type of label that I like to use are these. And what I do is I actually attach these to the pot so that birds can't fly away with the labels. The wind's not going to somehow blow it away. It's just generally not going to get lost if I spray it with insecticide, or nothing is going to happen to this label. So these are my longevity labels that I keep around. A rule of thumb about cuttings is that cuttings should generally be taken from a branch that is at least a year old. Cuttings that are taken from really young growth, I have read some articles that indicate that it will always produce sort of a weak growth. So you should definitely be careful. Like if you order from someone and they continuously send you young, new growth cuttings, there's a very strong indication that maybe you should not order from them, or that you might just want to send them a note when you order and ask for cuttings that are a little bit more mature. This cutting is perfectly viable. This cutting is not actually really new growth, but this is what's going on here, is that Epiphyllum have a tendency to, they will grow, and then as the seasons come, the growing seasons come back through cycle, they will tend to grow again from their tips. So what happened here is that this part of this cutting is mature, and as we go down the tip, it gets less mature. So the tip of this is fairly new growth. I can feel this. This is very soft. It has a very different texture. You can generally see like the end is a little bit dried up. It's because it's just really not mature at the very end here. And you can tell like it's just really flimsy. As I squeeze it, you can see it's really flimsy. If you come back down this way, it's not so flimsy. It has a very different texture. Another thing that you would want to definitely get is some kind of pots. I like to get 6-inch nursery pots. I really like these pots. I like to get these little flats. You can use terracotta pots. You can get like the small 4-inch or 6-inch terracotta pots. Those are fine. If you really want to find cuttings but you don't really know where to go, whether they be Epiphyllum cuttings or really any other kind of epiphytic cacti, try to find some Facebook groups. There are sales groups, but there are also just hobbyist groups, culture groups. With vendors, you definitely want to go by word of mouth. If you're going to an online vendor, you very carefully read any of their rules and regulations, especially if you find an online vendor that is not in your country. Like on an annual basis, I actually order from a vendor that is outside of my country. I need to get import permits. I'd be very cautious about ordering from vendors that do not offer any kind of export or sites or phytosanitary certificates. There is a real chance you will not actually get what you paid for because it will be confiscated and you may not even know. So you really want to read everything that it says in their rules, because there are actually some of them that will just point blank say, I am not responsible for you not getting your materials. You can also find a lot of sources on eBay or Etsy. There are a lot of really good sellers on eBay and Etsy, and sometimes there are some not so good sellers on eBay and Etsy. What you really want to do is make sure you go through and you You just check them out and you read their reviews. You can ask around in the Facebook groups. You can ask other people like, hey, you know, like, have you dealt with this person? Have you bought from this person? How was your experience? Like, let's say that I see this for sale. Some vendor has this for sale and I'm not really familiar with this, but I see a picture of a flower that I just think is fantastic. And I get really excited. But what you really want to do is make sure that you go and look this up online. Look it up online, look it up on Facebook, check out the flowers, make sure that they all kind of look the same and that, you know, they're copacetic, that they actually match the picture that the seller has listed and that it appears like it's their own picture. You want to be really careful about, I think, seeing reused pictures or borrowed pictures. Another really great place to go is your local societies. In certain regions, there are local Epiphyllum societies. Generally, you're going to find those societies in California or out of the United States. There are societies in other countries like Epic. And that's a really, really good community. That's a really great place to go just to learn and develop and grow and talk to other enthusiasts. A lot of the societies will publish publications. The Epiphyllum Society of America publishes the Hybrid Registry, and that's a really great source. That's definitely something that is worth looking into. There is a cost that you incur to obtain the registry. In my opinion, the cost of the registry is really a pittance for the information that it has in it. What you will find in the registry basically is if I, like, let's say I have this hybrid and this hybrid blooms, I can go into the registry and I can look this hybrid up and make sure that the description of the hybrid actually matches what it bloomed as. Beyond that, I can get more information. Like, I can get how old the hybrid is, when was it registered with the society, who registered it, who hybridized it, as well as sometimes its parentage. I hope that you found this information useful in some way.